As Republicans deal with Representative Greene's anti-Semitic remarks, their eyes are firmly set on recapturing the House majority. Historically, the odds are in their favor. In the last 30 years, the House lost an average of 27 seats from the president's party during the midterm elections. Only in two cycles, 1998 and 2002, did the president's party actually gain seats, neither of which flipped control of the lower chamber. If these trends continue, it would likely give House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy the Speaker's gavel for the first time. The California Republican has been in his party's leadership since 2009 and unsuccessfully challenged Paul Ryan back in October 2015. McCarthy is one of the 147 Republicans who, you will recall, attempted to overturn the election results by voting against certifying President Biden's victories in Pennsylvania and Arizona. Kyle Kondik is the managing editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball at the University of Virginia Center for Politics, and he joins me now from Washington. Kyle, welcome. Great to have you with us. So explain how the 2020 census has made it difficult to predict, sort of made your crystal ball a little murkier than usual, exactly what kind of uphill battle Democrats might face in the midterms.
Yeah, so after every census, every 10 years, all the House districts are redrawn across the country to account for population changes. And, different states do this in different ways. In a lot of places, basically, if a party controls both the governorship and the state legislature, they will try to draw the lines in favor of themselves. So for Democrats, for instance, they control, they have total control of the process in Illinois. For Republicans in places like Texas, they do, in Georgia. And so what you'll see is that there'll be, members put into the same district with one another, have to run against each other. You'll see members drawn out of their seats. You'll see seats added in states that are gaining population, et cetera. But what's happened this time is that the census has been delayed, and so the states are not going to get the kind of granular data they need to draw these districts until, it sounds like, August or September, which has sort of delayed the redistricting process across the country. We know from history, and you were just talking about it, that the president's party almost always loses ground in midterm elections in the House, and the Republicans only need to net 5 seats to win the House next year. And so you'd expect them to be favored to do that, but the actual battlefield is still a mystery because of the changing districts, and the new maps aren't going to be out until later this year or even into 2022.
All right, so let's talk about the hypothetical rankings you've released, knowing all of this for the House in 2022, if none of the district lines change. What do those rankings tell you?
Yeah, so if this was not a redistricting year and all the districts were staying the same, you'd still look at Republicans, I think, as favorites to win the House, because if you just go district by district, I just see a lot more vulnerable Democrats than I do vulnerable Republicans. Part of it is that the party that doesn't hold the White House just generally does a little bit better in these midterm elections. It's pretty rare for an incumbent of the non-presidential party to lose in a midterm year. And so we came up with our own ratings. We had 19 Democrats as toss-ups. We only had 2 Republicans as toss-ups. Toss-ups in our ratings doesn't mean that someone's guaranteed to lose, but it does mean we see them as pretty vulnerable. So again, even if no district lines were changing, I think Democrats would still be in trouble in the House. And if you actually look at the exchange of seats going on, the states losing seats, the states gaining seats, and then also who controls redistricting in which states, we and many others expect the Republicans to ultimately have an advantage on balance in that process, which, combined with the usual midterm penalty for the president's party, I think makes it hard for Democrats in the House. Not impossible, but hard.
Well, let me ask you something else. So we know that oftentimes the response to the president's party comes off a wave of dissatisfaction with, the first term and feeling like there were campaign promises that weren't kept. This time around, however, whatever you think about campaign promises kept or not, a lot of Americans got checks in the mail. Will that have something to do with how these voters feel about the president's party?
Yeah, it certainly could, and bigger picture questions about the state of the country, whether people feel good about the economy and just the general direction of things, what President Biden's approval rating is. Right now, Biden's approval rating is roughly 54, 55% approve, 40, 41% disapprove in the polling averages. It's pretty decent these days, given that opinion of the president is so polarized, and certainly it's better than Donald Trump's approval rating this time 4 years ago. If we went into the election and Biden had this kind of positive approval rating, you might expect the Democrats to not lose that much in the House, or maybe even hang on to the majority. So, for all of the kind of history and the redistricting and what have you, if the public is broadly satisfied with the state of the country, they may be very well may allow the Democrats to hold the House, and again, in spite of these bigger picture trends.
And yeah, I'm always curious about polling, because like we said, a lot of the polling shows that some of this legislation is popular. We know that polling for the House was off last year. Democrats were expected to expand their majority, and instead it got slashed. So what will be the challenges for pollsters in projecting the 2022 midterms?
It certainly seems like Donald Trump's place on the ballot in both 2016 and 2020 really messed up polls. I think there were some people who maybe were presidential cycle only voters who really like Donald Trump, who the polls just weren't capturing. And then the question then becomes, is that a problem with the polls in 2022 when Trump's not on the ballot? The polling wasn't perfect in 2018 in the midterm, but it was certainly better than it was in 2016 and 2020. And so we may get a better sense of what's going on. But I also think we have to be cognizant of the fact that polls are imprecise tools, and in recent years these polls have been likelier to kind of understate Republicans as opposed to understating Democrats. So even if the polls look decent for Democrats this year and into next year, don't necessarily assume that that's actually how things are going to shake out.
Right. Very interesting points. Very true. Kondik, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.